We will now analyze the action phase. The map illustrates the military situation of the previous turn, before Rome's actions. As you can see, several cities have already been Romanized in previous turns, and contain Roman garrisons. The first thing the active players must determine is the number of action points available. To do this, refer to Rule 5.8.2. The Sabine player rolls the die for the king and makes 3, which according to the rule is divided by 2, rounded up, for a final result of 2. To this result is added 3, which is the virtus of the king, plus 3, which is the virtus of the magister populi, equals 8. The leader of the Senate does the same and gets a total of 6. Thus the king's army will have 8 action points, while each of the 2 tribunes will have 6. The first action is for the king. The player decides to act with the king, leaving the magister in Rome. The king takes 3 remaining infantry plus 2 cavalry from the minimap of Rome and moves towards the Equi army. 1 action to move plus 1 action to give battle. The battle is victorious, the enemy annihilated. Enemy units become captivi and are placed on the minimap of Rome to be exchanged into IPs at the end of the turn. At this point the king moves to Antium. The move costs 1 action. As Antium has no garrison, the player chooses to make an intimidation which succeeds automatically. A Roman unit goes into the general pool and a garrison of 1 Roman goes to Antium. The player then moves the king to Velatri and does the same. The actions spent so far are 6. The king is left with 1 infantry and 2 cavalry. The player moves the king from Velatri to Anagnia. Here the garrison is present, so the player opts for a siege. The initial die roll fails, and also that of the actual siege. But the king is entitled to a second shot and this succeeds. Anagnia is Roman and a garrison of 1 is placed there. The player decides that the king has done enough for this turn and stops. It is now the turn of the player who controls the Senate to move the tribunes. The first tribune is taken to Satricum. Here there is a Volscian garrison. The player, instead of a siege, opts for negotiation. He does this by spending 2 IP and rolls 1 die, a number equal to the value of his virtus. The garrison value is exceeded. The player recovers 1 IP and a unit of enemies of Rome drawn at random from the general pool, in this case a unit from Equi, is placed in their assembly area. The second tribune is taken to Artina. Here too there is a garrison. The player attempts an intimidation which succeeds. The city is Romanized and the player Volscian, as head of the Senate, gains 2 IP. This ends the actions of Rome. Now it is the turn of the enemies on the map, which will be controlled by the inactive players. Since the Equi have been defeated by the king, and the unit drawn from the general pool does not move without a leader, the players can only move the Picenes. They are in an active war since the chit was drawn at the start of the turn. Marco and Andrea choose to roll a die to see who will move the Picenes. Andrea wins. The Picenes move along the route from Castrum Truentinum towards Rome, which is their final objective. The enemies of Rome have 6 actions per active war. They besiege the Sabine city of Amiternum and conquer it. Then they stop at Reate, which is Romanized. Here the Picenes attempt another siege that succeeds. 2 actions have been spent, 4 remain. Now the Picenes besiege Cures, and here too they succeed. The Roman garrison is removed. 3 actions remain for them. Now they swoop down on Calatia. It too is besieged and falls, though not immediately. The Roman garrison is removed. The way to Rome is open. The Picenes reach Rome and lay siege to it. The Magister Populi is left in Rome with 3 infantry and 3 cavalry. He can command up to 4 infantry units and only 2 cavalry. Rule 6.3.5 allows the Magister to go out and attack battle. The Picenian army is destroyed and the enemy captivi are taken to Rome. The Curia of the Latins gains 1 IP and the gratitude of the Romans. We have reached the end of the round. The tribunes return to Rome and their mandate ends. The captivi in Rome are converted into IPs, 5 for the king and 4 for the Magister Populi. In addition, 5 towns have been Romanized in this round, which yield as per Rule 7.42 IP to the king's Curia and 1 IP to each of the others. The round is over. The game continues.